So the top 10 pieces of media I saw this year. So this is just going to be my 10 favorite pieces of media I saw this year. Books, movies, TV shows, whatever. And it's gonna operate on the new to me principle. If I didn't see it when it came out, it's new to me. Alright, let's get this started with number 10, Endgame. Was it as good as Infinity War? No. Was there a lot of fan service? Yes. Did the time travel plot make perfect sense? No. Did it provide satisfying endings for most of our main characters? Yes. Side note here, I don't think this Vesemir part really counts for the trope of women in refrigerators because that trope only really counts when it's for the exclusively for the drama of the male protagonists who survive. And this is part of Black Widow's story, so it doesn't count under that thing as far as I'm concerned. Not that I consider that trope to be very let's say robust to begin with, but I'm just saying, could we stop calling this a fridge scene? It isn't. It's as much about Natasha as it is anyone else. Whatever. Number 9, Flowers of War. I'm not gonna lie, this is a complete 180 from the last thing. This is a movie produced in China about the sacking of Nanking, which has another name that I'm not going to say. If you didn't know a lot of these things were based on real events, you'd almost think that it was complete propaganda, but it wasn't. This thing actually happened, and the movie captures that, and the movie captures a lot of the historical accuracies fairly well. Although it does kind of have a weird subtext about Western dude coming over and only initially caring about money, but then embracing China's superior group-oriented policies, yada yada yada. Although, ironically, people tend to be more altruistic in individualistic societies, but that's neither here nor there. It's still a good movie that captures the idea of the sacking of Nanking fairly well. I do not recommend you watch this on a full stomach, though. It can be pretty graphic and horrifying. Great movie, though. Number 8. Continuing my trend of doing a complete 180, Harley Quinn.
That logo's the shit.
This show is hilarious. And it's actually about something more than just a joke. It's about Harley getting over her abusive relationship with the Joker. I've always found it weird how in Valentine's Day rolls around, you'll see, like, people idealizing this relationship, and I'm like, you do know this abusive relationship, right? Like, that's the point. And this show is all about that, getting over that abusive relationship and the like. It's a lot more Deadpool than Joker, if that makes any sense. The reason I can't put it any higher is, well, 1, it's not done yet, and 2, there's some feminist whinging in it. And when I say whinging, I don't mean, the bitches are complaining that they don't have equal rights. No, I mean, you're complaining about things that just aren't true. Yeah, it would be terrible if women received worse punishments for doing the same crime as men. That, however, is the exact opposite of what goes on. So the subtextual point you're trying to make here, it doesn't really work in this episode. Whatever, they're not doing a whole lot of this, so it's just a small part of an otherwise great show. So I can forgive it. What happened to the ability to just compartmentalize things? Yeah, I don't like this aspect of something, but it's still good in every other aspect. Can't believe they got Brave and the Bold Batman back.
Why are you protecting a psychotic clown who treats you like garbage?
Ask the guy who fucks bats.
Number 7, The Mandalorian. Believe it or not, I don't actually like Star Wars that much. 2 of the movies are outright bad. 2 of the movies are probably some of the best movies ever made. And the rest are varying degrees of, yeah, it's alright. Revenge of the Sith is probably the best bad one. Return of the Jedi is probably the worst good one. Or Rise of Skywalker, one of those two. But this falls flatly in the middle of, this is a pretty good Star Wars show. It reminds me of Firefly more than anything else. And, I like it. Good show. Some people were complaining that, hey, it's not Boba Fett. Boba Fett was nothing but a frickin' costume, so it basically is. Number 6. Brooklyn Nine-Nine season whatever we're on. It's a funny show that continues to be funny. It fumbles a little when it tries to score political points, but that's kind of a third-tier thing. First off, the show tries to be funny, which it usually hits. Second off, maybe a little drama, a little romance. and that's mostly a hit too. I don't hate this coupling, which, I mean, if you've watched a lot of my videos, you'll know that I tend to hate romantic subplots and just about everything. Lastly,
entrenched patriarchy has created a culture of victim shaming that suppresses any power shift in our masculophallic system.
patriarchy theory. Solutions that won't work to problems that don't exist. Yeah, it usually doesn't hit when it tries to get political, but it doesn't need to. Still nails what matters.
Also, STD stands for sexually transmitted disease.
Number 5, Dragon Prince Season 2. I'm a pretty big fan of fantasy. I think that's pretty firmly established. And I like animation, so I watched The Dragon Prince. Yeah, it's pretty good for all the reasons that Mother's Basement has already gone into, so you should go watch that video if you want to know why it's so good. Why Season 2, though? As previously established, I dislike romantic subplots, and yeah, that didn't really work for me. It's not like Season 3 is bad or anything, but it did feel a little bit rushed in some areas, and I didn't care for some of the subplots. Although I do have to say, a bunch of people with European accents acting like they're better than the people with generic American accents is the most accurate thing I've seen in a fantasy show in a long time. This has been a lot of TV shows, hasn't it? Yeah, the rest is books. Number 4. I probably should have read this before, and this counts as a definitely it's new to me sort of thing, considering the book came out over 100 years ago, but A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. I know, I totally should have read this before this point, but I just did, and I gotta say, I love Mark Twain as an author. If you've only ever been forced to read him in, like, school or anything, I would suggest picking up some of the things you didn't read in school, because I actually liked Pudd'nhead Wilson a lot more than I liked Huckleberry Finn, and I liked A Connecticut Yankee even more than that. Something about how he writes is just so compelling. Although if you're British, you should probably avoid this because he is not kind to you. Number 3, Spellmonger, Farmaturge. Farmaturge? I can't pronounce it right. Anyway, it means study of magic. Anyway, I've said this, I think this series is underrated before, and I think I know why. It has almost as much in common with military sci-fi as it does fantasy. It sets up some rules, and then it asks you how you would solve the problem. Then the characters do it. You know, clever solutions to problems. And I really can't get much into the plot of it because that spoils other books, and it's like a 10-book series, so yeah, if you like fantasy, I would say check out Spellmonger. Ironic that I like these grounded, realistic settings so much, despite the fact that I constantly go on about how, yeah, you don't necessarily need to be grounded and realistic. Number 2. Speaking of military sci-fi, Expeditionary Force, Armageddon. I haven't talked about this series before, but it's a military sci-fi basically set where there are two sides in an ongoing galactic war, and humans got kinda caught in the middle of it. It's difficult to talk about without spoilers. Suffice it to say that there's an AI character in it that I love, and I think a lot of the series lives or dies on if you find the banter between the AI who goes by the name Skippy. Yeah. And the main character, Joe. If you find that banter amusing, you're gonna love the series. If you don't, it can probably get kind of grating. I, however, really liked it, so I really enjoy these books. It's also just good military sci-fi. There's a problem, we gotta find the solution, using the logic of the universe as it's already been laid out. It's a good series. I enjoy it. And I enjoyed this installment. Haven't finished the latest book yet, so I can't put that on here. Let's do some honorable mentions. Grant by Ron Chernow, whatever. Grant was apparently kind of underrated as a president goes, and this book does a pretty good job of convincing of you that. The Expanse, Season 4. I could listen to the actress who plays Avasarala read a frickin' phone book. I love this lady's voice. Young Justice, Outsiders. As previously established, I like animation. I still maintain that the best season of Young Justice is the first season. Not that this one is necessarily bad, it's just they focus a bit too much on the newer characters, and it's a bit that edge for me at times. Still, it's fairly decent. It's more Young Justice, which, fine. Number 1. The Ape That Understood the Universe.
Just give them a few years and they might deserve the name of Ape That Understood the Universe.
Yes, that was a rap song about this book. It's by a guy named Baba Brinkman here on YouTube. You should totally check the guy out. Anyway, this is a book about the field of evolutionary psychology that gives you a really great rundown of the subject at hand. And no, watching Rebecca Watson dismantle a straw man is not a great rundown of the field. None of what was said in this book was exactly new to me, but it does explain things in an incredibly great way, especially for people who just don't know anything about the subject going in. If you could read only one book next year, I would say read The Ape That Understood the Universe by Steve Stewart Williams. Great book, my favorite that came out this year. Let's do a bonus for my favorite thing of the decade, alright? Alright. Oathbringer by Brendan Sanderson. You remember him, he's the guy whose opinion of The Last Jedi I said sucked. This is the third installment in the Stormlight Archive series, and if you like fantasy, you'll love this series. Well, epic fantasy. It's a little bit ironic that I actually really like this book for a lot of the same reasons I really like The Last Jedi. I'm a sucker for a good redemption arc, and this is one of the best redemption arcs I've seen. Well, here's to a new year and hoping more good things come from it.